coming to you from the Hudson Media Group studio. This is Talking Politics, and I am the professor, Fernando Uribe. I hope you all had a wonderful Columbus Day holiday. Yes, folks, it's Columbus Day, so don't start with all your PC nonsense. And of course, there's a lot to discuss, so let's get started. Here's what I'm thinking about right now. Ladies and gentlemen, last week I talked about the state budget being recently signed by the governor as it was ratified by both chambers of the legislature. And of course, I was livid about it. And as I continue to dissect the budget in my spare time, I'm still pretty pissed off, and I'm going to tell you why. Now, certainly as we've seen in recent days, the proposed and signed $32.4 billion budget will fund the state of New Jersey from October 1st of 2020 until June 30th of 2021. Now, it includes a $4 billion amount of borrowed money, and of course, that allows for a $2.2 billion surplus. So let me give a nice shout out to a fellow journalist by the name of Mike Catalini from the Philadelphia Inquirer for his report on some of the details here in recent days. Now, as the budget was signed, it didn't take long for liberal groups across the state of New Jersey, such as Make the Road New Jersey, the New Jersey Alliance for Immigrant Justice, and other left-wing bleeding heart groups to still bitch and moan about the budget not being to their liking. And of course, for example, we saw Sarah Kalanini, the executive director of Make the Road New Jersey, one of the protesters outside the Capitol building in Trenton, saying that while they applauded the, quote, progressive budget, whatever the hell that means, they still wanted a relief fund for nearly 500,000 immigrants living in the country illegally who were excluded from the federal COVID-19 jobless benefits. Well, folks, I don't really care how this sounds, and I'm sure I'll get crucified and, have my name burned in effigy. Those aren't the people I'm really concerned about, as I talked about last week. I'm worried about, homeowners, citizens, those of us in New Jersey that comprise the 9 million plus of individuals in our population. But it seems that, people like myself and you watching at home, we're not the types that the liberals in Trenton, especially in the legislature, are too concerned about. Now, here are some more specifics about the budget as I continue to read about it. Now, under the budget, for example, millionaires and businesses earning over $1 million will be paying more to the state. The top marginal income tax rate will climb from 8.97% to 10.75%. Now, that means for every dollar above $1 million will be taxed at the highest rate. Now, businesses also making more than $1 million will climb from 10.5% to 11.5% under the budget. Now, the higher business tax rate would expire in less than 4 years under the budget, though the current rate is a result of an increase in 2018, and that was also set to expire in 2022. Now, that date is being pushed farther off. Now, the borrowing is also expected to carry an estimated 2.5 interest rate and will add to New Jersey's more than $44 billion in bonded debt. Now, subsequently, according to reports out of the governor's office and the legislative districts, respectively, the money will go to a number of areas, with the biggest share going to school districts that are quite impoverished. Now, part of the budget deal between the governor and the legislative leaders include a tax rebate of up to $500 for about 800,000 in New Jersey, but that won't come until 2021. Now, many lawmakers say that, because they want to capture the economic pain families felt during 2020 because of the pandemic, this is why this deal was struck. Now, of course, the financial strain will ultimately be seen by all of us who do our 2020 tax returns next year. But many Republicans in the legislature claim that the rebate, which is very low, by the way, is an election year gimmick aimed at doling out cash to voters, as both Governor Murphy and all 120 seats in the legislature, both in the state assembly and the state senate, will be on the ballot coming up in 2021. Now, folks, listen, the budget year was obviously shortened by 3 months because of the outbreak of the pandemic, and lawmakers enacted an interim $7.7 billion budget. Now, that plus the $32.7 billion I already mentioned puts the 2021 budget at about $40.4 billion, or roughly 4% than the previous year. And this is where I continue to say that Trenton is tone deaf. As I mentioned last week, and I'll repeat the stats once again, according to the Treasury, the average property tax bill in New Jersey is $8,953. Now, here in Hudson County specifically, it might be a little bit higher, but you know what I'm talking about. So you're probably wondering, why is that number important? Well, because the governor, along with many Democrats in the legislature, more specifically, liberals, all the woke people, all the social justice, clowns and everybody else, feel that the legislature, along with the governor, need to allocate $6.2 million to a legal fund to help illegals who are fighting deportation in the state. Again, folks, let's talk about how the lunacy here. We're helping illegals to get legalized here, right? And we're using taxpayer dollars and subsidies to pay for their legal representation, as if there aren't enough, activist groups or attorneys who are willing to work pro bono. Folks, I know tons of them. I know a lot of left-wing groups that would be more than willing to donate their time and their money to these causes, but somehow we need to use taxpayer dollars. Folks, that's not my problem. Helping illegals stay here legally and avoid deportation, that's not something I'm concerned about. I don't care how that sounds. You say whatever you want about me. You want to hate me? That's fine. Get in line. That one stretches around the block too. But you know what really matters to me though? It's taking that $6.2 million and, for example, it's an increase from the 3.1 of the previous year. You know what? Why not provide property tax relief? Because if you take that average tax bill here in New Jersey and you divide it within that $6.2 million, you're providing property tax relief for over 670,000 households. That's right, folks, 670,000 households, all right? That's not peanuts, all right, folks? That's a significant amount of people in New Jersey, okay? And what better way to help families during the pandemic than providing property tax relief? But no, the governor and liberals in the legislature prefer to help illegals because, you know what? It's all about feel-good projects. I don't care about feel-good projects. I care about my pocket feeling good, and so does everyone else. And you know what? When the governor uses language like, well, if you don't like it here, you can move. No, Governor Murphy, I hate to tell you, as well as liberals in the legislature, you should want us to stay here. You should make the economic climate more comfortable for us to want to stay here. For whatever reason, that doesn't interest you. I don't know what the voters will decide in 2021, but right now, everyone in Trenton deserves a reevaluation, especially Governor Phil Murphy. And that's what I'm thinking about right now. In the latest edition of the now 4-time award-winning podcast Talk on the Hudson, which you can listen to live every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at www.blogtalkradio.com/Talk on the Hudson, was the distinguished councilman out of Ward D in Jersey City and fellow Rutgers alumnus, Yousef Saleh. We talked for over an hour on a variety of different topics and issues as his chances to fill that seat temporarily come up on November the 3rd during a special election. Here are some highlights for your consideration. First and foremost, we talked about the accomplishments he's had in the short time he's been the councilman in Ward D. Let's check out what he had to say.
Now, Councilman, let me ask you this because it's not the elephant in the room per se, but a lot of people have reached out to me when they knew you were going to be on. I mean, my phone has been inundated with texts since about 5:30 p.m. today, and a lot of DMs, yes. And, people were very much interested in your appearance today. And we know that coming up on November 3rd, certainly it is this election to fill this seat. Again, to have you, complete the rest of the term. As we all know, coming up in 2021, that will be the next challenge, as they say, coming up on the ballot. But a lot of people have said to me, Fernando, because Yousef is running under the umbrella of Mayor Stephen Fulop, he's received the overwhelming endorsement from Stephen Fulop. Some people look at this, and I think I might have mentioned in our last episode, a lot of people in Jersey City are watching this race really closely because it might be not necessarily an indictment, but it might be maybe an opinion setter as to what to expect for Stephen Fulop in 2021. Do you feel any pressure to get turnout up and to ultimately win here because the mayor, A, has endorsed you, and B, it seems like people are going to look at this, all right, this is a barometer of whether or not Stephen Fulop has that serious pull in Jersey City. Do you look at it that way?
I think that, if we look at the 2017 race and what the mayor pulled citywide, as well as what he got in terms of votes in the Heights, he's pretty popular up here. I know that the people of the Heights value, independence when it comes to their councilman. But I also think that, that's not the only thing they look for. They look for someone who's a competent leader who can work collaboratively with the mayor, with the other council members, someone who can get results, tangible, physical, visible results for the people of the Heights. And that's all they're looking for. They don't care how the sausage gets made as long as, the sausage comes home at the end of the day. And, if we have cleaner streets because I'm working with the mayor, if we have more trash cans because I'm working with the mayor, if we have, better parks because I'm working with the mayor, I don't think anyone's going to complain about that. So that's the plus side to it. I know that there is pressure for me to, turn out to vote because I am under the mayor's umbrella, and it's kind of like like LeBron getting drafted for the Lakers.
Sure.
So I'm hoping to come home with a championship ring November 3rd, and we're working our heart out. I'll tell you that. Like between being councilman and running for office, and also having my own day job, like it's been a extraordinary time in my life. But I think that I wouldn't trade it for the world, because it's the strongest steel is made from the hottest fire. And I can tell you, I'm basically been through a lot of fire now, and all of us have been, and we're going to make it through the other end, and we're all going to be stronger for it.
Secondly, we discussed the challenges that COVID-19 has posed for him, as the traditional campaign apparatus is definitely not in effect. Going door to door, talking to people, shaking hands. Obviously, folks, because of the pandemic, that really isn't possible right now. But it hasn't stopped him from mobilizing and being very energized to talk to his constituents in Ward D, specifically in the Jersey City Heights, where so many people are still mourning the loss of the previous councilman, Michael Youn. Let's check out what Yousef had to say about it.
It is election season, and certainly because of COVID-19, campaigning in the traditional way just isn't possible, Councilman. And we know this because, being able to go door to door has been impossible. People are not going to be receptive to receiving strangers at the door. Certainly, you can't go knocking on every single door in Ward D. I'm sure you'd like to. I'm sure you've tried. But it's just not, realistic right now under the circumstances. What are some of the challenges you've been facing as November 3rd is quickly approaching and you're looking to win this special election coming up?
Well, like you said, this isn't a traditional election, and basically people are fearful. Sometimes, actually a lot of times, you just have to keep your distance from people, and some people might put their hands up and say, hey, please don't come any closer. And it's not a traditional election where you would shake hands and kiss babies and do photo ops like that. You have to do everything in a very considerate manner. You have to consider people's health, and you really have to just you don't know what the other person is dealing with if they're immunocompromised. So even if they're not immunocompromised, you have to think about their family, and it's definitely a lot. And I would like to not have to campaign in a pandemic, but this is our democracy must go on, and we are going to give the people of the Heights real choice here, to help continue the progress that we've been doing, to help get us through this pandemic, to have smart, capable leadership that's willing to work, every single council member, every single agency, every single department, every organ of government, whether it's state, county, or local, in a way that benefits the residents of the Heights. Because we need to all work together to get through this. And I think if this pandemic showed us anything, it's that we are all reliant on one another, and our lives are inextricably linked to one another.
Undoubtedly, it was quite an informative episode, which you can listen to in its entirety, once again, by going to www.blogtalkradio.com/Talking to Hudson. You can download the episode and listen to it anywhere and anytime from any PC, Mac, smartphone, or tablet. As you know, Yousef Saleh and other exclusives are the ones you'll only hear on Talking to Hudson, live every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. And now to some local stories for your consideration. And here's one that really should strike a nerve with all of us, and a shout out to Terry West, fellow journalist at the Jersey Journal, for the report on this story. Now, apparently the month of October continues to bring the largest daily coronavirus increases that Hudson County has seen in months since the pandemic broke out early this year. And local hospitals are sensing that a second wave of the deadly virus may be around the corner. Now, it's a conversation that's happening statewide, but New Jersey has recorded the most new cases in a single day since May the 1st this past week, along with Monmouth and Ocean counties, respectively, are now being regarded as hotspots. Now, once again, great job there in the Jersey Journal talking about this, but the virus has also been gaining significant strength locally since the end of September. Now, for example, Dr. Nizar Kifafi, president and the CEO of the Hudson Regional Hospital in Secaucus, said that spiking cases in some counties should be of concern to all residents in North Jersey. Dr. Kifat went to say, quote, I personally know a lot of people who have homes by the shore, and they travel on the weekends. You can just imagine with the constant back and forth how disease might spread extremely quickly. You can't really isolate the South from the North. Now, Hudson County has recorded more than 50 new cases in a single day 4 times this month already, which hasn't happened here in the Garden State since early June. Now, the Bayonne Medical Center had its first coronavirus patient on a ventilator since June, according to the hospital's chief medical officer, Dr. Alfredo Rubinas. Dr. Rubinas wanted to say, quote, I feel that within the next 2 months, consistent with the flu season, we'll see a good increase in cases. It's yet to tell if it will be exponential, meaning very, very rapid, considering we have a lot of community members wearing face masks and taking more contact precautions each and every day. Now, a potential second wave in the fall and even in the winter has been on the minds of many medical professionals, ladies and gentlemen, for many months. And as the weather starts to cool, people will head inside where the disease appears to spread more easily. Especially with flu season coming up, meanwhile, could pair with the virus to create what many medical insiders call a twindemic. Now, folks, listen, I've said it before and I've said it again. Certainly, I'm glad you're all well and healthy, but let's keep taking the necessary precautions. Wear your masks, okay? Please practice responsible social distance. Wash your hands. I mean, I'm one of those OCD people that washes his hands constantly. I come in the house, I wash my hands, okay? I wash something in the sink, then I go wash my hands, okay? I'm working, grading online or working on outlines for this show or my other media programs, and guess what? I'm always washing my hands. Why? Because we're always touching our face, right? It's like one of those mechanisms we always engage in. Folks, just take the necessary precautions. You don't know who you're protecting, whether it's you or your family or others around you, whether it be in the workplace, whether it be, friends, colleagues, whoever it is. Let's take the precautions we need to stop the coronavirus in 2020, and hopefully we can get back to some sense of normalcy in 2021. Staying with local stories, let's go to the Mile Square city of Hoboken. A special thank you to John Highness with the Hudson County View for his report on this story. Now, 321 Hoboken small businesses will now be able to utilize the $1.82 million in CARES Act funding relief to assist with payroll, mortgage payments, and utility expenses exceedingly being difficult due to the ongoing coronavirus pandemic. Now, let me just give you some details here, folks. Now, according to Mayor Ravi Bala, in a statement this week, quote, I'm hopeful that our federal elected officials will provide even more relief in the months ahead as we continue to support our local mom and pop shops. Thank you, Senator Robert Menendez, Senator Cory Booker, and U.S. Representative Albio Sires for fighting for CARES Act funding in our community. Now, as you recall, in July, Senator Menendez joined Mayor Bala, Freeholder Anthony Romano out of Hoboken in District 5, County Executive Tom DeGise, and other political figures in the county in announcing roughly $1.9 million in CARES Act funding for small businesses, again, going to the Mile Square city. Now, the county executive, Tom DeGise, went on to say, quote, Hoboken's economic recovery from the pandemic depends on small businesses coming back. That's why we're so grateful to Senator Robert Menendez and our federal legislative delegation for securing these CARES Act funds and working so hard with Mayor Ravi Bala and the business community to put them to the best use possible. Now, in order for businesses to qualify, they had to be operating in Hoboken at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic on March 1st, operate as a for-profit entity, and have at least 25 employees or less. Again, this is the criteria to qualify as a small business. Now, the amounts of grant funding were determined by criteria established by the Hudson County, setup of government with the freeholders and so forth. Now, Hoboken has also provided relief for small businesses through the Hoboken Relief Fund, created to provide financial assistance to small businesses and individuals affected by the current public health emergency. Now, the Relief Fund, co-chaired by Council President Jen Giattino and 5th Ward Councilman Phil Cohen, has raised over $410,000 for impacted Hoboken businesses and individuals alike. Any Hoboken business, certainly with questions about the CARES Act grant funding, are encouraged to email smallbizgrants@hobokenNJ.gov. So, listen, I discussed this on the show previously. A shout out to our U.S. Senators, Robert Menendez, along with Cory Booker, for working to get this funding here in Hudson County, especially to a township like Hoboken. And of course, the U.S. Representative, Albio Sires, for their diligent and consistent efforts here. Now, ladies and gentlemen, without question, we all know that there are many parts of Hoboken that we enjoy, and many small businesses that have come to define the Mile Square city. It's not always like the big bars or nightclubs, not that there aren't many left, because of Robbie Bala's policies, But listen, when we're looking at small mom and pop shops, whether it's that local pizzeria, whether it's the local tailor, local dry cleaner, whatever, these are small businesses that make up the Mile Square community. So again, a shout out to the elected officials for doing their part to help out, hey, these small businesses that have come to define Hoboken and hopefully will stick around for years to come. Sticking with another local story for your consideration, and here's a number that should really worry us all, because 61% of Hudson County residents completed the census in 2010. 10 years later, we actually did worse. Shout out to Terry West, fellow journalist at the Jersey Journal, for her report on this story. Now, the Hudson County anticipated census-taking challenges well before the global pandemic struck in the middle of a once-in-a-lifetime type of decade. Guess what? Had a considerable effect on how residents completed the census. Now, officials knew that the county's economic, ethnic, and linguistic diversity would make it harder to count than most other counties in the state, if not the entire country. So despite advanced planning, the county still couldn't keep up. Now, again, as mentioned in the Jersey Journal this week, as the census officially ends this past week with one final twist, a Supreme Court ruling that cuts the response period short, guess what? Hudson County has not even met its modest goal of achieving the self-response rate it did in 2010. Now, the 2020 rate was 59.9% as of this week, which is 1.4% lower than its rate in 2010 of 61.3%. So essentially, it's 9.4% below the state's response rate. Now, Hudson County's undercount can't simply be attributed to one pocket of the county, which may now house more than 700,000 residents. But many census tracts countywide remain at least slightly below the response rate that the Census Bureau anticipated them reaching. Now, politicians and organizations alike are coming to terms with the fact that there might be some fallout. According to Jersey City Ward 8 Councilwoman Denise Ridley, she said, quote, "I think that the undercount limits the amount of resources we could possibly receive, and this is a critical time for us, especially being in the midst of a pandemic." She also wanted to say that most census tracts in her ward, for example, have a response rate that ranges from the low 50s to high 60s. Now, the Supreme Court decision squashed plans that the city had for a final push in Ridley's ward. I was hoping, she said, that we could fit in a few more events during the last minute. Now, of course, Jersey City, which local officials have said was undercounted by more than 20,000 in the last census, and they had high hopes ultimately for what it could gain in the census count. Among them was earning the title of the largest city in the state. But it also knew, though, that its demographics presented a challenge. Immigrant populations with undocumented citizens, the illegals, called Jersey City home. And also, they've often avoided providing any personal information to the government for obvious reasons. Now, completing a government survey, even a short one, may also be at the bottom of a priority list for someone focused on, for example, putting food on the table, according to the CEO of the Hudson County Latino Foundation, David Miranda. Now, recently, the city, which had expected to see a jump from 260,000 people to more than 300,000 residents, offered residents the opportunity to, quote, get 2 chores done at once: your 2020 census response and your laundry, according to a recent flyer. Households were offered free laundry cycles if they completed the census. So, folks, elected officials and nonprofits here in Hudson County went out of their way to really motivate residents this year. Now, I understand that the pandemic has made us reevaluate our priorities. Now, trust me, having done the census earlier this year before the pandemic, hey, it wasn't very lengthy and it wasn't laborious at all. Problem is, ladies and gentlemen, during the pandemic, many people had to reevaluate what to do and what not to do. And I think this is where a lot of elected officials are seeing the frustration among residents. They probably didn't want to take the time to do the census online or even fill it out in person. And trust me, it wasn't that lengthy. If anything, it took me maybe approximately 3 minutes. And you know what? In 3 minutes, you can go to the bathroom, wash your hands, floss. There's a whole bunch of things you can do in 3 minutes. So why people just didn't take that amount of time seems to be, something I'm struggling with. If it was like a very, again, laborious, long-winded process, I get it. All right, but it's approximately 3 minutes. I don't know about you folks, it's just people being lazy. And I understand some people want to say, oh, it's the pandemic. No, it's not. It's just people's priorities. And again, if you just took only 3 minutes of your time, it would have gotten done. So I can understand the frustration of elected officials because you know what? They want to get this done and make sure the Hudson County residents get the resources that they need moving into 2021. And lastly, it is October, so as we all know, I'm a big advocate during Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And coming up on Saturday, October the 17th, yours truly will be partnering with the Union City Local PB8 number 8 right in front of the 49th Street, Burger Line Avenue Light Rail Station for fundraising as it pertains to the American Cancer Society and, more importantly, Making Strides Against Breast Cancer in Jersey City. As we all know, the walk this year will be virtual, but it hasn't stopped me from raising money along with my very generous sponsors. So once again, from 10 a.m. until 3 p.m., coming up on Saturday, October the 17th, I'll be there with our great men and women in blue from the Union City Local PBA number 8, collecting donations from you. Again, the weather will be cooperative according to weather reports, and also we'll be selling some t-shirts. Once again, with all proceeds going to benefit the American Cancer Society and the Making Strides Against Breast Cancer campaign out of Jersey City. Again, I want to thank my generous sponsors this month for supporting this cause. Since 2008, of course, I've been raising money for the American Cancer Society, and you'll be happy to know I've raised $50,348. So once again, a shout out to all my great sponsors, which include MedChoice Advisors, Medicare plans here in Hudson County, the 512 Restaurant and Lounge in Cliffside Park, the Crystal Insurance Agency out of Elizabeth, Metropolis Nights Magazine, headed by Hyro Arias, the Mason Civic League out of Hoboken, Corbello Law Practice out of Allendale, New Jersey, Carmela Maggio, Realtor Extraordinaire in Bergen County, Muller Insurance, represented by Erica Muller in Hoboken, The Doghouse in Nanuet, New York, certainly Cooper Place in Weehawken, New Jersey, Dr. Frank Bello, representing the Bello Chiropractic page in North Bergen, Insider NJ, led by General Manager Pete Onelia, Maria Gesualdi, Attorney at Law out of Guttenberg, New Jersey, and the Hudson County Democratic Organization, yes folks, Democrats do support me, led by the distinguished chairwoman, Amy DeGees. I'll have more sponsors throughout the month of October, but right now, folks, coming up Saturday, October 17th, I'll be partnering with the brave men and women in blue from the Union City PBA Local 8 to do our part to help defeat breast cancer once and for all. And that's our show for this week. To check out all the excellent programming brought to you by the Hudson Media Group and NJ On Air, please go to their websites, www.hmgtvshows.com, www.livestream.com/hmgtv, and www.njonair.com. Don't forget to like the Hudson Media Group and NJ On Air on Facebook, and of course, follow them both on Instagram and Twitter. And remember, live every Wednesday night at 9 p.m., you can listen to the 4-time award-winning podcast, Talking the Hudson, by going to www.blogtalkradio.com/Talking the Hudson. You can listen to the episodes from any PC, Mac, smartphone, or tablet, anywhere at any time. I'll continue to bring you those exclusives that nobody else is bringing you in Hudson County. Proud to be hosting the podcast since March of 2017. We're still going strong in 2020, and we'll continue doing so in 2021. Folks, check out my Instagram and Twitter when possible, and also on Facebook as I continue to bring you informative and enlightening content each and every day. And never forget, ladies and gentlemen, if it's unbiased, unfiltered, and unafraid, you know it's always talking politics right here with the Hudson Media Group and NJ On Air. Now more than ever, ladies and gentlemen, independent media is here for you, and I'm proud to bring it to you every single week online. I'm Fernando Uribe. Thank you so much for watching.
Don't forget to catch Fernando's podcast at blogtalkradio.com/talkonthehudson. New episodes available every Wednesday night at 9 p.m.